Hi everyone, it's Marian and welcome to my Oasis Life. In this video, I'll be showing you how to properly flush your plants. So this video is part of my Houseplants Back to Basics series, where I'll be talking about all the preparations that we need to do in time for the growing season for our houseplants, and also for the plant parents out there who are new or just plant parents who needs a refresher. I'll be going over basic but comprehensive stuff when it comes to water, lighting, soil, and fertilization for our houseplants in this series. So flushing our houseplants. If you haven't heard the term flushing or leaching your houseplants, it's a process where we take out the salt and hard water mineral buildup in the soil of our houseplants, and this happens when we water our plants. So like I talked about in my POTHOS Care 101 video, it doesn't matter if you bottom water or you top water your plant. If you're using regular tap water, chances are there's going to be salt and mineral buildup in your soil. And when we fertilize and we over fertilize, there's going to be a lot of excess nutrients in the soil that is not good for our plants. So flushing or leaching our plants is a way to remedy that. And if you have heard the term flushing or leaching your plants, it's probably when people are talking about growing tomatoes or maybe even growing cannabis, because the goal for those plants is to harvest in the end, and they have very different stages that require different nutrient needs, and flushing helps with that process. And for us houseplant enthusiasts, we don't need to flush our plants as often as people who grow tomatoes or cannabis do, but flushing our plants is still very beneficial for our houseplants if we do it every 6 months or before we fertilize. I would usually say before and after the growing season, and also each time before we fertilize. So for our houseplants, what's going on underneath the soil is as much important, sometimes even more important than what's going on above it. So flushing our houseplants is a way to make sure that the soil, especially if we are not repotting our plant anytime soon, is a good way to ensure that the soil our plants have is still healthy and a good environment for the roots of our plant. So before we start fertilizing our houseplants again, it is very good practice to flush our plants before we do. And in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how you would do that. So I'm going to show you how to flush your plants using my ruby rubber tree over here. So as you can see from the soil, I don't know if the camera could pick it up, but there is some like white stuff on top, and I know it's not mold, but it's salt buildup. You could also see it over here. If the camera would focus, like over here, you could see the salt buildup. And this is more apparent if you have a terracotta pot, because you would also see it reflected in the side of the terracotta pot, where you will see like white stuff on it, and that is usually means it is the salt and mineral buildup. So if you have a plant in a terracotta pot, my first step would be is to wipe off or try to wash off that side of the terracotta pot. But I found out very recently on Instagram that people feel very strongly about aged terracotta pots, and they don't like removing the aged look of the terracotta pot. But for me personally, the health of my plant is much more of my priority. So for me, I would wipe off and remove the salt and hard water. But for me, I would remove the salt and hard water mineral buildup on the terracotta pot, but it's your choice whether you want to do that or not. But for most of us, whether we have it in terracotta, ceramic, or plastic pots like I have it with this one, you would see the salt and mineral buildup on top of the soil of your plant. So first thing you would do, especially if this is your first time doing it, for the season, I would take off the top inch or two of the soil, depending on how big your pot and your plant is, and just remove the top soil very carefully and try not to disturb the roots as much as possible. And you could use proper tools for this one too, but I'm just using my hands to do so. As you can see from here, after I remove the top inch or so of the soil, it doesn't have as much of the white stuff anymore. But of course, the salt and mineral buildup still is in many parts of the soil, so we are going to flush it. So to flush this plant, I have this water right here. And for flushing plants, you could use the regular water you use to water your plant, but you're going to need 3 times as much water than you normally would when you water your plant. So for this size of a plant, I normally I bottom water most of my plants. So for this plant, it takes up to about a cup of water. So 3 times that is 3 cups of water. And you could use, like I said, you could use the same type of water that you use when you are watering your plant, but I also consider flushing day for my plants as it's spa day. So this water right here is filtered water that I pH to 6. So I'm giving it a little bit of special water, but it's not necessary. So pH 6 is the pH level of water that houseplants like. For most of us, the pH level of our tap water is going to be pH 7, 8, or 9. I don't think it goes higher or lower than that, because lower would mean acidic, and that's bad for our sewage and our pipes. So our water is going to be 7 and up. Our water is pH 7, but I pH this down to 6 for flushing my houseplants. And in the water episode of my houseplants back to basics, I would talk more about getting your water to pH 6, whether that's beneficial or necessary for your houseplants or not. So over here, what I'm going to do is I have this bowl to catch the water that I'm going to drain out, because I am going to pour this water slowly on top of this plant, and I'm going to let it drain out. Normally when we water our plants, whether you bottom water or you tap water, we usually have like a drainage saucer or whatever to catch the water, and we let it sit after it seep out that water. But for flushing your plants, you can't let it sip back any of the water that it just drained out. That kind of defeats the purpose of flushing. So I'm just going to put slowly the water, make sure that the water doesn't run off. And I'm just going to let it drain. I put about a little bit over a cup here. And sometimes I also squeeze the plastic planter just to help it speed up a little bit more. So as you can see, I pour about a cup of water and barely anything came out. So even if you top water, you are not flushing out any of the salt and mineral buildup on a regular basis, unless you're using tons of water, which I don't think it's beneficial to your plant as well, because you're either overwatering it or you're over flushing it. So, and this is like the second cup of water. And here's the third, not the third, still on the second cup. So yeah, you just have to do it slowly, because you don't want the water to run off and the soil to run off. And I'm just squeezing it just to speed up the process, but you don't have to do that. I just do that because it is in a plastic container. It also ensures that the excess water is getting seeped out. But you have to be careful, because it might uproot your plant. This one has a support, so I'm like not so antsy about squeezing the water out, but I would be if your plant is not properly supported. I actually filmed this episode already using my larger ficus elastica, and that one was a little bit more fascinating to watch, but the audio was bad. So I might just share a time-lapse version of it in my IGTV after I put out this episode. As you can see how much dirty water it's flushing out. And since doing this requires a lot of water and a lot of time than normally watering your plants, and it's March and we're approaching the growing season very soon, so I'm going to be starting to fertilize most of my plants in April. But I'm using this month of March to flush my plants one at a time. So during their watering days in March, instead of just watering them regularly, I am flushing them. So I don't have to do it all at the same time, and I'm not like using up a lot of water all of the same time. And if you can drain the water like this and find another way to reuse it, that would be awesome, because this is a lot of water that we are using. Of course, you cannot reuse it for your other house plants, but if you could, like, I don't know, use it to flush the toilet or something, or pre-wash something with this, like something that you're gonna wash anyways, and use the water in here to pre-wash it, like your gardening tools and stuff, then that would be great, because we use a lot of water in taking care of our house plants. Or another alternative way that you could use for your houseplants instead of your tap water or filtered water or distilled water is rainwater. Rainwater is the best water for your houseplants. So as you can see, there's a lot of water. So just make sure that all of that is getting squeezed out. And properly drained. So that's why this process takes a little bit of time, because you really have to wait for it to drain out, but then you can't let it sit on the water it drains out. So I'm gonna get back to you after this finished draining. So I have finished letting this plant drain, and I put back all the water that came out of the plant, and this is about 2 cups, and we started with 3 cups. So what I'm going to do now is to get rid of that last cup of water and water it with this water. So what I'm going to do is give it a final cup of water, which is the water that I want this plant to retain. So this water is also filtered water, but it has Epsom salt in it. Epsom salt is magnesium sulfate, which has magnesium and sulfur, which is great macronutrients for your soil. And if you're heading towards fertilization, I suggest, this is a recommendation, that you use an Epsom salt solution to ease your plant into getting fertilized again. So, but that's just me. I use this for my microgreens. I use this for my seedlings. It helps them grow a little bit better, because magnesium and sulfur are great ingredients for your plants to help them absorb nutrients better, especially for nitrogen, potassium, and phosphorus that is found in most fertilizers. So this magnesium sulfate is a way to bring back some nutrients for the plant without shocking it. So I'm going to do that. This one I'm also draining as well, just because I don't want the soil to retain so much moisture, and like I said, I'm trying to get rid of the last cup of water that this plant absorbed with the water that I used to flush it out. So as you can see, it's taking a while now for it to absorb the water, because the soil is already oversaturated with water. So this process, you need to be patient. Like I said, this is not a process similar to top watering. It's very different. It takes a lot of time and patience. It takes a lot more water. So you should really dedicate a time to do this. And if you have a lot of houseplants like me, then you should do it by batch and do it all throughout this month. Whenever your plant's watering day comes out, just flush them instead of just giving them regular watering. And it's also best to do it on a sunny day so that you can help your plant dry out a bit faster after this flushing. Like today, it's going to be a 60+ degree day, which is great. And so this is a great day to do this. So this one I'll be bringing outside after I film this video. So as you can see, I poured back in here all the water that get drained out of this plant, and it's exactly a cup. So all of the water that I used to flush this plant is gone from the plant, and the water it currently holds now is the Epsom solution. So that is a good thing for the plant. And so the next thing that I'm going to do is to top dress the plant. And top dressing is not necessary to do every time you flush your plant. So flushing your plant is recommended every 6 months and every month if you fertilize. But removing the topsoil and top dressing your plant is not recommended every time you flush this plant before fertilization. I would only recommend top dressing at the start of the growing season and at the end of the growing season. So during the times that I'm about to fertilize, I'm just going to flush the plant with water. So to top dress, I have this fresh soil. So in an upcoming episode of Houseplants Back to Basics on different soil and soil amendments, I would talk about this more. But if you want to know what is my soil mix for spring 2020, go check out my IGTV. I just released a video on my spring 2020 soil mix, but it's basically very easy. It's cocoa coir mixed with a little bit of perlite and nutrient of your choice. And I am okay with putting a topsoil that contains some fertilizer already. The fertilizer I put in here is half strength, plus this ruby ficus elastica didn't really go into dormancy over the winter. It is still growing as You can see over here, it keeps shooting out new growth. So it does need the nutrients now. But for your plants that actually went into dormancy, I would hold off adding any fertilizer yet, even if it's just on the topsoil. That's it for my first houseplants back to basics video, how to flush your houseplants. I hope you enjoyed watching and found it helpful. If you like it, please give me a thumbs up. And if you're new here, I hope you subscribe. I come up with houseplants and sustainable lifestyle videos every week. And if you haven't yet, go check out these videos for me while you wait for my next one. But until then, I see you, I appreciate you, and have a plentiful day. Bye.